I think we all have at least a couple of games we like to turn to when we just need to experience something comfortable and familiar. I mean, yeah, new experiences are different and exciting, but nothing hits quite like playing through a game for the 15th time. I think it's kind of like enjoying the company of an old friend. Maybe the kind you don't really talk to often, but when you do finally catch up, it's like no time has passed at all. There are honestly a lot of games that give me this kind of feeling, but I wanted to make a video talking about some of my favorites that can be played on a hacked PSP. Because it's been a while since I've shown the PSP some love on my channel, and after all, it's kind of the reason I've gotten this far on YouTube, so I thought it would be a good way to celebrate 25,000 subscribers, which, by the way, thank you all so much for 25K. I do not have enough decision-making skills to list these 5 games in any fully particular order, but just know I love and recommend all of them, even if number 2 might be kinda questionable to a lot of people. I do kinda have those rose-tinted nostalgia glasses on at times, after all, but still, maybe you'll find something on this list that you haven't played before and want to give a shot, or maybe I'll convince you to revisit something you haven't played in a while. So with that said, I'm going to start with the game on the list that I have definitely played the most over the years. When I got my Dreamcast at the start of the 2000s, one of the games I got for it initially was Sega Smash Pack, which was a collection of mostly Genesis games that I was entirely unfamiliar with aside from Sonic. One of the Genesis games on the disc was called Shining Force. I didn't know what it was, but I gave it a try and it's been one of my favorite games ever since. Shining Force is a turn-based tactical RPG, which, I'll be honest, is not the genre of game I'd usually gravitate towards playing that often, but with how many times I've completed this game over the years, playing it is kind of second nature. Whether I'm any good at it or not is a question for another day. In Shining Force, the protagonist Max and his group of allies called the Shining Force are on a quest to stop the antagonist Dark Soul from resurrecting the Dark Dragon to rule over the land of Ruin where the game takes place. You will most often be on a battlefield controlling the Shining Force in order to defeat the opposing enemy units, and your party can be made up of any combination of knights, warriors, healers, archers, mages, etc., up to 12 members. You lose the battle if Max dies or if you retreat, and if any of your party members fall in battle, you'll need to revive them with a priest in order for them to be able to fight again, and that costs money. Outside of battle, you can explore, talk to NPCs, visit shops for new weapons and items, open treasure chests that don't belong to you, switch party members in and out, as well as promote party members to higher classes after they've reached the required level, if and when you choose. Shining Force is often compared to Fire Emblem, but notably lacks permadeath, so if you like Fire Emblem but are looking for a less high-stakes experience, I definitely recommend Shining Force. And again, this is one of my all-time favorite games, and aside from Sonic Adventure, it's probably the game I've replayed the most in general, so I highly recommend you give it a try if you haven't. Sonic CD seems to be a game a lot of people have negative opinions on these days, but I have always had a soft spot for it. Nostalgia aside, since it is my first memory of Sonic, there's always just been something about it I've had a hard time describing. It feels so unique from Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and Knuckles, and sure, it does partially come down to the gameplay, which values exploration over speed, and it also partially comes down to Sonic CD having an entirely different development team. But honestly, in the end, what it comes down to for me is Sonic CD simply has vibes. From the music, yes, even the US soundtrack, to the neon colors of, say, Stardust Speedway, the atmosphere and aesthetics are unmatched, and I feel totally immersed in all of it from the moment I open the game. In case you're unfamiliar, in the game, Sonic is trying to save the planet of Little Planet from Eggman, and Little Planet is home to stones which control time, which Eggman wants, so he can rule over everything like he likes to. Notably, in Sonic CD, there's time travel mechanics that you can trigger with time warp signs that will either send you to the past or the future. You can use the time travel mechanic to create a good future for each zone by finding and destroying the robot transporters, and destroying all of them will affect which of the game's 2 endings you get. In this case, you get the good ending. There are also special stages in which you can collect the time stones, and collecting them will also lead to a good ending. If you fail at these things, you'll of course get the bad ending. If you don't care about which ending you get, you can attempt to just breeze through the stages, but thanks to things like backwards facing springs, this can get a little frustrating, so I think it's probably best to just play Sonic CD the way it was intended to be played. It gets a decent amount of criticism for the gameplay style and past and future mechanics, but I personally find the change of pace pretty cool. I know when you think about Sonic, you think about going fast, but I've always really liked games that are on the experimental side, so I find Sonic CD really fun and interesting. If you've never played Sonic CD, hopefully this gives you a quick idea of what to expect, and I really think you should give it a shot. If you hated Sonic CD, I get it, but boo. If you're a Sonic CD enjoyer like me, put this on your PSP now, or I guess just play it again in general on your platform of choice. Summon Night Swordcraft story is, to put it simply, very, very charming. I don't remember how I stumbled upon this game over a decade ago, so I don't really have that story to tell, but I do know that pretty quickly I was absolutely hooked. To start off the game, you'll choose between playing as a boy named Kleru or a girl named Pratty. And the gender has very little effect on the story or character interactions, which is notable because a female love interest, for instance, is a love interest regardless of that choice, which, considering the game came out in 2003 in Japan and 2006 in North America, I thought it was really cool. The player character is the child of Shintetsu, one of 7 craft lords, who sacrificed himself years prior to the start of the game in order to save his family and community. You'll be entering a tournament that's being held in order to find a new craft lord to take his place, and along the way, you'll learn the truth about your father over the course of the game. Summon Night Swordcraft story is an action RPG, and you'll get to forge and enchant weapons, explore a dungeon with over 100 floors, and fight monsters through a nicely polished battle system, all while enjoying a huge and diverse cast of characters. Without being too cutesy, the game is undoubtedly still pretty cute, and leans heavy into comedy and lightheartedness, only adding to its charm. Overall, Summon Night Swordcraft story is a really fun time, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone looking for something to play that's not at all intense or serious, but still very engaging. So this is an interesting thing to put on the list because I only pretty recently played Kirby's Dream Land for the first time, and it was actually my first time playing a Kirby game ever. But I had such a good time with it that it's already a game I keep coming back to just to enjoy myself and also to try and beat hard mode. The story is a total afterthought and completely unimportant, but basically King Dedede stole all of Dreamland's food and sparkling stars, and Kirby is there to try and retrieve all of it. The game is pretty standard as far as platformers go because, like, you're platforming and dodging or defeating enemies, but what does make it unique, at least for its time anyway, is Kirby's ability to float around the stages and inhale enemies, which can then be shot out of his mouth at other enemies. However, because it's the first game in the series, Kirby doesn't yet have the ability to take on his enemies' powers when he swallows them. But you can still swallow them if you want, I guess. The game is far from riveting, but it is very fun all the same, and I found it pretty challenging on my first playthrough. Though that's because I went almost the entire game without pressing the A button to jump, instead using up on the D-pad to float around. For literally no other reason than I'm an idiot, and pretty early on I magically forgot I could jump with A somehow. The game is known for being incredibly short and quite easy. However, if you want more challenge, at the title screen, you can press up, A, and select at the same time to play on hard mode. Overall though, the game is quick, fun, and cute, so if you haven't played it, I'd recommend giving it a try, or maybe if you have played it, give hard mode a shot if you haven't before. Okay, listen. There's not really much I can say about the plot or mechanics of a classic Pokemon game that you won't already know because the likelihood that you've already played Pokemon Crystal or any of Generation 2 is pretty astronomical. I've just been on a big Pokemon Crystal kick ever since I started doing the retro achievements for it, and it is my second favorite Pokemon generation, so I figured it deserved a spot on the list. What I will say is I love the unique, cozy feel of Generation 2, from the kind of muted coloring of the environments, for lack of a better word, to the peaceful music. I think if it's been a while since you've played Pokemon Crystal, you should absolutely revisit it, or if you're one of the few that hasn't played it, give it a try. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to my channel members and patrons. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing because it really helps the channel out, or if you're feeling spicy, become a channel member or check out my Patreon, which I'll link in the description. Anyway, I'll see you next time, bye!